So, Mike, I think we're recording. So, I guess we should do some sort of intro. So, hi everyone. My name's Mark, and I'm co-founder of Caviar and Chips. This fine
Hi
gentleman is.
everybody, I'm Mike and I'm head chef for Caviar and Chips.
Ta-da! As you can see, we have grown very long beards during the stay at home. Not doing quite well up there. So we thought that we would record a quick Q&A with our head chef, Mike. We've been obviously rearranging lots of weddings and events during this rather strange period. And so on the back of that, we've been moving lots of different weddings and events to autumn time, which kind of prompted us to write a blog around autumn menus and start looking ahead to the times of mists and mellow fruitfulness. And so we posted a blog on our website at caviarandchips.co.uk, and on the back of that, we started getting some questions about ideas for menus, even ideas for recipes that we can be cooking at home. So we thought we'll get Mike here and we'll start talking to him about some of these questions, and we can hear straight from Mike about some of his inspiration, his ideas, and a bit of alchemy about how he comes around and creates these menus that we do so fantastically well. So Mike, we got sent 6 or 7 different questions from people, which we thought we'd quickly record these, maybe 10 or 15 minutes, and just give people a quick overview. And then what we'll do is we'll transcribe some of the answers as well, just so that people can go back onto our website and read back over them as well if they need to. Well, if you're good, should we make a start and see what kind of questions we got coming through? Okay, so the first one starts with, I guess, the theme at the moment is doing stuff in the garden and being a bit sustainable and growing our own. So we got a question from Helena, and Helena has been growing beetroot and parsnips. So she is looking for some ideas for some beetroot and parsnip recipes that she can do at home. What's your advice?
I mean, together, that's a tough one to start off with. Trying to think aside from soups. I mean, the beauty of those is, I mean, beetroot's really, really earthy. I love beetroot personally. And parsnips, nice, got a sort of sweet edge to it, but again, really wholesome. In terms of putting them together, personally, I'm a big fan of a pickle. Right, so I would probably look at something like a kind of light but hearty salad, something like some pickled beetroot, roast on the beetroot as well, sort of shave that pickled beetroot, chop up that roasted beetroot, roast the parsnips off with maybe a little touch of honey and some thyme, help bring out the sweetness. The thyme's not necessary if you haven't got it, but, you know, grow some. And then I think to finish, I'd put some leaf through there, probably watercress, rocket, preferably a mix of the two. I think it'd be really nice. And because it's earthy and because they're sweet, it needs some tart. And for me, these two, the first thing that jumps out at me is fresh apple. Right, so just thinly slice some apple, whether you want to cut that into little matchsticks or just sort of chunks if you want in there, depending on your tastes. I'd have that in there to finish it up and put a bit of sort of tartness on the top line, because otherwise it's going to be a bit too sort of heavy. Okay. In terms of dressing, mustard would work perfectly well. Sherry vinegar, I don't know if you've got any of that. A little dressing with sherry vinegar as a base. Okay. But yeah, I think that's where I'd go if I was mixing beetroot and parsnip. Nice. Well, I hope that's helpful for Helena. Hopefully she can send us a photo of Instagram as well, see what she's been doing. Okay, so so got a completely different question now then. So this is Martin. Martin's getting married in October, and he wants some ideas for some autumn canapes, if you've got some. Ooh. Okay, so I'll try and think of a little mix, so it's not all the same thing. Okay, so I don't know if you're a fan of fish, Martin, but autumnal canape I really like. It's sardines. Okay, so they're easy to prepare. They're quick to cook. They are really, really tasty. You can eat the whole thing. So do sardine on a little piece of toasted sourdough, but underneath the sardine, a little chorizo stew. So you got that smoky, warming hit from that paprika and that chili, and the fish, because the fish is quite intense, it can stand up to it. That for me is a really nice fish canapé. that chorizo stew, you can just do, shallots, carrots, tomato, chorizo, and cook that down. If you wanted to, you could add in chickpeas, whatever. Obviously, you want to cook it down so it's nice and reduced, and therefore you'll be able to fit it. It's not going to leak off the side, for example, of your toast. The last thing you want is chorizo oil going all over your guests at your wedding, to be fair.
Down your dress.
Take care of the veggies. Again, autumn, mushrooms, fantastic. In terms of a little light bite, thinking like a mushroom and truffle palmier. So essentially it's puff pastry with mushrooms cooked down and some truffle, some black truffle in there, which is just amazing. And basically you cook that down, spread it over the pastry. And you roll that pastry in from each end. I'm doing it on my imaginary worktop here.
I wasn't sure you were doing it on your stomach.
So you roll it that way, then you roll it that way.
Oh, yeah.
And so you get the really nice shape, the cross section, like the pastry swirl. And then a little tarragon cream on top. Really, really simple, really easy. Mushroom, tarragon, truffle, they all work beautifully together. And it's nice and light at the same time. And then finally, I think I'd probably go for venison. Love a bit of venison. Now, there's a few different things you can do. Tartare is great, but it might be off-putting to a few people. So I think you can't go wrong. The little venison and black pudding, Scotch quail egg. It's nice and small. It's really, really rich. And so lighten up with a little celeriac remoulade on top. And that is essentially a cold salad of shaved celeriac, tossed with a little touch of mayo, some whole grain mustard, bit of salt and pepper, little touch of white wine vinegar, and you're away. And it will lighten that quail egg.
Yeah, that sounds like quite a cool one as well for guests, doesn't it? Like, ooh, this will be quite.
And you get a bit of crispiness, you get that nice runny yolk, you get the rich meat, you get the fresh celeriac. It's a winner.
All sorts going on. That sounds a good one. Well, hopefully they're good for Martin. Gives him some ideas for his wedding in October. Now then, we had a question from Becca. Becca, sadly, is one of the couples whose weddings had to be postponed. So she was originally going to get married in March, and she's now getting married in November. And fingers crossed she is. So originally her menu was going to have Mediterranean dishes. She really likes Mediterranean kind of food. It's kind of restaurants she enjoys going to. So that's what kind of menu she was going to originally. And now that she's getting married in November, she wonders what kind of Mediterranean dishes could she be looking through for like an autumn, almost like into a winter, I guess, there, isn't it?
Yeah, it's tough, especially because most Mediterranean food just makes you think summer and sunshine and being on the coast. I mean, in terms of using those flavors, you kind of stay away from things like fresh tomatoes, especially in this country. They're not going to be as good as they would be in the summer. I mean, I still think you can't go wrong with a lamb moussaka. It's one of my favorite Mediterranean dishes. The way I do it is I slow cook a lamb shoulder so that it gets pulled down, cook it on the bone to get more flavor, pull that down. And then when you're biting into your moussaka, because it's not minced, you've got more texture and it's kind of a bit more hearty. Personally, I love that. And that's layered up. And what I do actually is use a yogurt and egg yolk mixed with a few spices in there, as opposed to like a white sauce or something like that. And when that goes up with the really reduced tomato sauce, it helps set and it sets firm. That is a beautiful thing for me, to be honest, to have.
That sounds like a good one.
Could have it as a starter, but I think it's probably heavy enough to be a main course. That's how I would treat it, as a main. Again, you can still work with garnishes of salads with, jeweled couscous is really nice, chopped apricots, pomegranate, mint, coriander, some carrots and red pepper through there. Actually, what you can do is cook that couscous with the lamb stock that you've got from braising your lamb shoulder for the moussaka, so it'll complement it really nicely. That's personally where the first place I would go for. In terms of your sort of Mediterranean vegetables, they're going to be good to go. Your aubergines are fine. Courgettes are a little summery, but obviously you're going to have peppers and stuff still. You can roast them, some garlic and some herbs, and they'll be good. There's plenty of places you can go with Mediterranean food without it just being a tomato salad. Yeah.
I think the moussaka is a really good choice, actually. Really good recommendation. So, fingers crossed for Becca that her wedding can go okay in November. Now, we had another question from Zoe, and she's saying that autumn makes her think of soup. And she likes soup, but for her wedding, she was saying just soup on the menu sounds boring. Now, I think we probably disagree that like you can make soup quite pizzazz. But we'd like to hear from you, Mike. Like, what would you do to your autumn soup to serve it for a wedding?
So, autumn soup for me, I always think of the tail end of summer as the autumn that I'm going into.
Okay.
And my favorite soups, it's really, really simple. It's sweet potato and chili.
Nice.
So you roasting your sweet potato off, which is obviously got a bit of sweetness to it. The chili, obviously, you don't have to go crazy off the scale, like blowing your head off. But personally, I find it nice to have a little bit of heat there in the background. Yeah. You can add some spices and bits and bobs to it if you want, some coriander, some cumin if you want. Yeah. Almost invoking a little bit of that spiced carrot soup, which is really, really popular, but with a more fun feel to it. And then with soups to jazz them up a bit, it's all about the garnish. Okay. So if you go, oh, here's a tomato soup, for example, on its own, it's never going to be as good as when it's got a basil pesto on it and some fresh herbs and bits and bobs like that. So with the sweet potato and chili soup, I love a coriander cream. Okay. So straight from the off, you've got that really sort of vibrant, just off yellowy orange soup color, and then this blob of green right in the middle. So it contrasts nicely. Yeah. Coriander classically cools down any heat that you would have. So it complements in that way as well. The cream will actually start to melt on top of the soup, which means it will start to spread across. So you're getting it with each mouthful. Yeah. And then probably, I mean, for me, probably a bit of fresh chili, but some fresh spring onion over the top, some chopped chives over the top as well would be great. And then obviously some croutons or some nice hot bread to go with it. That for me, I just can't ever put the spoon down with a sweet potato and chili soup. It's just really, really.
You've made that sound great. Yeah. Hopefully, Zoe, that doesn't sound too boring. I mean, that sounds awesome to me. I think I might go and have some after. That sounds like dinner sorted.
I'm not all that
much. So we had oh no, this is your probably your area of expertise. Actually, we often talk to you about like being a dessert alchemist. I know you kind of get carried away with all the desserts, don't you? But it's a nice question from Chloe actually. So Chloe asks, what's the best autumn dessert that you could actually make at home as well?
Okay, so putting these crazy ideas on hold because it's got to be done at home. I don't think you can beat a tatin.
Yeah.
Apple tart tatin is what I'm going to go with. So, oh my God, it's just, so what I do personally is I will core my apple and peel it and then cut really thin slices all the way through the apple as opposed to chunks. For me, it eats better. Once you've got all those layers of apple, you make a caramel. Now you can flavor that however you like. You can do a base caramel if you want. I quite like a bit of Calvados in my caramel, but I appreciate people probably don't have that much Calvados lying around at home.
Or know what Calvados is.
Well, I mean, if you've got
I probably include myself.
So you can make your caramel and you basically toss your slice of apple in there so they just get a light touch of the caramel, and then layer them out in a pan or a dish, tray, whatever you've got. Okay. Something, I mean, if you're going individual, probably something about that big. I know that doesn't help at all. But if you've got like a medium size, like home size frying pan that can go in the oven, that'll do for a few, like 4 to 6, maybe even 8 of you. So if you're not at home alone, that can work. You layer the apples up and then you just cut out, and you can do it quite roughly, cut out a disc of puff pastry. Put it over the top, and what you do is you tuck the edges all the way around right inside, because what you want to do eventually is turn that tatin out of the pan, and you want that pastry to sort of house those apples. This is another reason why I think slicing the apples really works, because they compact into that, so you have a solid sort of packed tatin, as opposed to, you turn it out and then it buckles slightly and you've got a wedge there that's moved and then there's a gap and it's filling with liquid. For me, that's not the way forward. So I think you pack all those apples in, and then what you'd be very careful, what you want to do is egg wash the pastry so it gets really nice and crisp and glazes on the top, but make sure you stab a hole, maybe even a couple, through the pastry to let the steam go. Otherwise what will happen is the steam will build inside the pastry and it will lift the puff pastry up slightly, which means it won't be connected in any way to the apple. So when you go and turn it out, you'll get a disc of pastry turn out, and then all your apples will just slide onto the side.
That's
not
logic.
And then I think if you're doing it at home, I think
Yeah.
just grab some vanilla ice cream out the fridge, all of that on top. I love when we use a caramelized pecan ice cream. Works beautiful. This aside, sometimes we make a brandy ice cream to go with it. Anything you want to do, if you're doing it at home, grab yourself a tub of vanilla ice cream. You can get it from anywhere. It's really, really simple. You might already have a tub in your freezer at home, and just a blob of that on top. Beautiful.
I think that's a really good suggestion, that one. It makes me think about, I remember us doing a wedding last summer, and it was for, I think it was late last summer actually, and there's a couple, and George was the groom, and George was saying how apple tartan was his favorite dessert, and it was almost like he was waiting, he was just going through his wedding breakfast, just building up for the dessert, and I think he had like 3 helpings, and like he was just in heaven when he was eating it. So it's a really good one. It always makes me think about his wedding. Brilliant.
He'd enjoy that, to be fair.
Yeah. Last question, Mike. So this was from Jenny, and Jenny's getting married in September this year. And she was saying she was interested to know, if you were getting married, Mike, what would be on your autumn wedding menu?
A lot.
It's fair to say that you're not married at the moment, so this is still possible.
It is still possible. I'd feel bad for the chefs, to be honest, if they were doing this. So, starter, I'm going scallops. Love a scallop. And my favourite, and it's almost a year-round kind of scallop dish. You can make it work, but for autumn it really works, is king scallops, celeriac puree, but it's slightly caramelised in like a nut brown butter. And then apple. So like an apple jelly, apple gel, fresh apples. You've got different sweetness, different textures, different flavors. You've got that tartness as well. And then just black truffle grated all over the top. It's my favorite scallop dish ever.
Amazing.
Main, it's going to be difficult not to go with duck. It's one of my favorite meats to cook. It's one of my favorite meats to eat. There's a lot of things you can do with it. I'd probably go with a pomana, because I love a pomana. So like thinly sliced potato, tossed in butter, and then layered, and then cooked, and then pressed.
Yeah.
And crisp up the outside of it. It's lighter than, say, like a dauphinoise potato. You can typically have garlic butter running through it as well if you want, but on my wedding day, probably stay away from the garlic, I would imagine.
Deal's done then, isn't it?
As much as I can, anyway. And then I really like, so if you use the whole duck and then pull the leg meat down, slow cook the legs and then pull that down. Okay. And then make a mix of that and wrap it up in a cabbage parcel, which gets poached off and then tossed in the pan quickly. And then probably some baby carrots, blackberry jus, just to cut through the richness of the duck. That's a winning autumn dish right there. I'd love that. Nice pink duck, obviously. And then dessert, I'm just a sucker for a chocolate delice. I always am. Always have been since the first time I had one. And as much as I love chocolate and raspberry, probably a little too much. Stepping away from that, I also love chocolate and hazelnut. And so I think I would go with the delice. I'd go with some caramelized hazelnuts. I'd go with like a praline cream, because praline is just one of the best things in the world. And a bit of honeycomb. That for me, that's a winner. I'd be happy after that. I'd probably be pretty full, but I'd be happy.
That sounds like a brilliant menu. That, I mean, it almost makes me think you could probably match people based on what would they have on their wedding day for their meal.
That's a great dating app.
It's worth saying that this isn't necessarily a plea to say, if your menu matches Mike's, then get in touch or anything like that. But I'm sure you've made some people fall in love with you there with those food choices.
Well, it's a bonus.
Mike, thank you very much for those. Hopefully some of those bits of advice and some of Mike's insight there has been helpful for people. And thanks very much for everyone sending in their questions as well.
Thanks.
So we're going to write this up and we'll put it on our website. We've been writing quite a few blogs over the last few weeks. And I know that we did one about outdoor catering recently with Boutique Marquise. We did one with wedding planners, Boel Events and the Wedding Bubble. And we're looking forward to doing many more in the weeks to come. So I'm sure there'll be lots of other advice and tips. And I think our next blog, Mike, that we're currently working on is around spring and spring menus, given that we're in spring at the moment. So what kind of things can we be doing with our menus there? and we'll do another one of these. And so we'll look out for more questions coming our way. But if you need any other tips and advice, then you only have to head over to caviarandchips.co.uk or check out our Instagram, Facebook, Twitter pages. You'll see probably lots of handsome pictures of Mike and the rest of our team, and hopefully lots of menu inspiration as well. So stay safe, everyone. Thanks very much.
Hey,
Take
guys.
care. See you, Mike.
Bye.
Bye.